Hello, my name is Alberto Molina, and this is the second part of a video about how you can optimize your applications when you are starting using OpenStack. In the first part, we discussed about different topics, and we are going to start explaining some of them. The first concept that we want to explain is what is a cloud-native application and how is its architecture. And obviously, it's an application that runs in the cloud and is using some features that the cloud provides. There are different definitions for cloud native applications, and different people can understand different features. But probably this definition that we are getting from AWS is a nice one, that it can explain easily the main components of a cloud native application, and is the immutable infrastructure is based on the usage of microservices, APIs, service mesh, and containers. So the infra layer is immutable. That means that when you need more resources, instead of scaling up a VM, like in a traditional monolithic application, what you do in these kind of applications that are usually a cluster, you add more nodes. And then when you need less resources, you delete nodes. But those nodes, the hardware that they are using is immutable. Microservices is the basic component of the architecture, because you have small components that are providing a service. That's the reason for having this name, microservices, and they communicate with the others using the network. And the way that they communicate with the others are mainly using APIs. There is also an additional component that is the service mesh, that because the complexity of the configuration of all these microservices is providing some configuration for the service, for the communication, trying to have the complexity of that for the services out of the microservices, okay? And finally, the software that is used to run these applications is usually a container, and it's not explicitly in a cloud native application, but at this moment everyone assumes that when you are using cloud native applications, you are using some kind of Kubernetes to run it. And the second concept that we want to explain is what is a microservice, and we want to compare it with a monolithic application. So in a monolithic application, you have all the components running in the same node. Usually, all of those components have been writing using the same programming language, and usually the same version, because these interrelations that they have. On the other hand, when you are using microservices, you have a cluster and you have several components. They can be hundreds of components, it depends. And because they are completely independent and every component is providing a service, they can be writing using different languages, different versions. The components in a monolithic applications are internally connected, while in a microservice architecture, you connect every component with the rest using the network. They usually using these APIs, right? Obviously, the architecture in a monolithic is simple, while the architecture when you are using microservices is complex, and it can be extremely complex. It depends on the number of nodes that you are using. There is also that could be better when you are using microservices, and is related to the upgrades, is because in a monolithic, you have all the components together, and then you need to find the proper way to upgrade them all. And usually during this upgrade, you can cause downtimes because there is one moment when you need to restart a service or something like that, and then this will cause a downtime. While when you are using microservices, usually with some kind of load balancers, you can manage the upgrade of every single component, and then ideally without any downtime. So you can imagine that there are many options between a strictly monolithic application and one based on microservices and deployed as a cloud native application. Because you can think about an application that is using several services, using REST APIs, maybe running in containers, some of them, or others running in VMs. Are all these situations that you can find in between, because we have been talking about the two completely different situations. Okay, so now you need to think about what is in between and what are the different options that you can use, because that intermediate situations maybe are better for some of the applications that you need to run. The good news, and this is the main idea we want to share with you, is OpenStack allows you to run cloud native applications, monolithic applications, or anything in between. So we think that if you are thinking on improving your applications and you would like to do that step by step, then we think that OpenStack is the perfect place for doing this, because OpenStack provides you the full set of features that you need for doing this, even if you want to finally run them on Kubernetes as a cloud native application. It's something that you need some steps in between, and then OpenStack is the perfect place for that. But why OpenStack and not, for example, VMware for this transition? We think because the main difference between VMware and OpenStack is where they come from. VMware was created as a virtualization platform, and finally it was evolving as to a cloud platform that is at this moment adding more layers, components, and features. But they needed to provide compatibility with the previous versions. And also most of the users using VMware continue using the same way of working. But OpenStack was designed as a cloud platform from the beginning, and the way of working, the way of using OpenStack is exactly the same from the beginning. And it's something that you need to learn, because also you can use OpenStack as a virtualization platform. But then, in that case, you are missing a lot of features that OpenStack is providing, and also those that are mainly helpful in this transition. What is this OpenStack native way of working? If you are coming from VMware, you can probably find this slide very interesting. So take your time to understand these concepts. In OpenStack, we use golden images for VMs. Those golden images are standard images and configured that are shared between many different VMs. Because the configuration, the specific configuration for every application is performed in a second stage after booting the VM, usually using some specific software, configuration management software such as Ansible or Puppet, something like that. Also, it's extremely recommended to use load balancers for scaling out the applications, and your application should be reproducible. That means that it's recommended to have an application ready to be destroyed and then created again from the scratch, also obviously adding externally the data, and then the situation of your application should be the same. So this is reproducibility. And all these concepts are related to DevOps. That is the natural way of working with cloud platforms like OpenStack. So don't try to go or to jump from monolithic to a cloud native application. You can perform this change step by step. And that's our recommendation. It's not a generic one, because sometimes you need to rewrite your application from scratch. In this case, obviously, you can start thinking about a cloud native application from the beginning. But that's not the most usual case. For the rest, what you can do is to improve your application step by step. What could be the first one? Try to pull out some components, for example, the stateless components that are very good to be managed by a load balancer. You need to add load balancer in your architecture. The more load balancer that you add, the more flexibility that you have in your application. And the idea is you start with one VM running your application, and then step by step, you are creating more VMs, pulling out some components, and more VMs in different stages. And obviously, you need to consider that you need to automate the creation of those VMs always. So if you are able to add the automation as a basic component in your way of working, finally, you are going to improve your way of working. That's the main idea. For finish this video, we have some conclusions. OpenStack is a cloud platform, and you can run a near cloud native application in OpenStack with the only difference of running in VMs instead of containers. But if you are in this stage, obviously it's really good because your application is completely ready to be run in containers if you want. You can run in OpenStack both monolithic applications as traditional applications and near cloud native applications. It's also very important to remark that OpenStack helps you in this transition, but not only for modifying or improving your applications, but also for your team, for you, for learning and to add to your knowledge this new way of working. And you are not doing it wrong, not at all. But we always can improve our way of working. And this is just a suggestion of how OpenStack can help you on that. And finally, the last conclusion is cloud native applications is not for everything. It can be a very good solution for some specific applications, but not for all of them.